So welcome, Emilia.
Thank you so much, Karen. It's really lovely to be here. And thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. I can't wait to get into the nitty-gritty of it. It's I love what you're doing. You're the author of Think Like a Vegan, podcast host of Think Like a Vegan. You're a speaker on vegan ethics. And you write blogs on life, travel, and veganism and all that stuff. The thing that's thrown a wheel in my little spanner is you're a corporate finance lawyer on top of all this. And so kind of a little bit out of place. One of these things just doesn't belong. Can you guess which thing? Anyway, and also you are rewilding the Scottish Highlands. And I absolutely love all those things. I don't know about being a lawyer, but anyway, I love all the rest of it. So thank you for joining us. And I want to dig deep on all of that stuff.
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
Except the lawyer bit. We're not going to talk about that shit. All right. So
that's completely fine because that's less fun.
Exactly. That just pays the bills. The other stuff's changing the world. That's what we care about. So you've got this book sitting up behind you, Think Like a Vegan, and the podcast Think Like a Vegan. What does it actually mean when you use that slogan, Think Like a Vegan? What does that mean to you?
That's a really interesting question. So maybe let me just take a little step back. So when my friend and co-author Eva and I decided to put together a book, we did so because we wanted to create a tool for people to teach themselves about veganism, to help them think through the various issues, and whether they were vegan or not, to do that irrespective of where they were on that ethical choice. And so when we were thinking about the book title, the fact that we were helping people think things through, and it being a tool, that's how the title, that's how we came up with the title. And Think Like a Vegan, it's we all know, being vegan, we don't eat animal products, we don't eat animal flesh, secretions, so forth. We don't wear animal products on our bodies, and don't go to zoos, and then do whatever we can so that we don't use animal products. But all of that little definition has a whole host of things that goes into it. So I find that thinking through all those pieces, putting it all together in a cohesive way, is really helpful. It was really helpful for me when I went vegan 10 years ago, and it's really helpful to be able to sustain being vegan, to continue to advocate for veganism, educate myself and others on the various issues, the connected issues, because I think everything is connected. I think, veganism as a social justice practice is connected to everything because it affects everything. And so that's the thing. When you are being vegan, you also have to think like one, in that you have to think about all of the things surrounding it, and everything that goes into it, and all the whys. So it's not just the how, but it's the why. And I find once you know the why, you can then apply it to your life in so many different ways. And I think that's and that was our intent when we wrote the book. And so it really was fortuitous that we ended up thinking about the title Think. So
I love it. But it's true that most of us, most humans, don't think. We've sort of we've become really entrenched in convenience. What can I have quick? What can I do fast? What serves me now? That kind of stuff. And it's I don't think we do put a lot of thought into, as a species, I'm talking about, not as individuals, but it's thinking Like there's Margaret Mead, she's a great writer, and she said we should teach kids how to think, not what to think. And I think the art of teaching people how to think is sort of, it shouldn't be, but it's somewhat off to the left, and this what to think sort of just overrides everything else. So I love that you're trying to instill that, just think a bit deeper, think a bit harder, think about the extent, think about the offshoots, think about the ripple effect, that kind of stuff. And I don't think people, I don't think it's common to think of all the offshoots.
I agree. I mean, I think there's a lot of, knowing how to think is also a dangerous practice, because then you'll say, hey, wait a second, this isn't right. Or, hey, wait a second, what you're trying to do, what you're trying to sell me, or what you're trying to make me do, that doesn't work. So it's both freeing, because you can look at things in different ways, and it's also but it's also a dangerous thing, because you'll say no, or you'll say yes to something else. So and I think there's also, people have limited time. I mean, we live in a very demanding world, with lots of things being thrown at us all the time, as you said. So we're always sort of reacting to everything, and we have to do everything quickly and efficiently. And sometimes efficiency, it doesn't give you enough time.
Yeah. And it doesn't always give you the best results. In fact, it rarely gives you the best results. But why did you become vegan 10 years ago?
I go into it in the book, so I'm pretty open about it. Really, it was understanding dairy, and I started thinking about it because we were going through, my partner and I, my husband and I, were going through IVF treatment, and being at the doctor's office, they were lovely, very nice. It just gave me these weird, I had a lot of time to think. You have these appointments, you have to take all this medication, all this stuff. And so one day I just was like, wait a second. Cows are mammals. Mammals have to give birth to lactate. Why has this never occurred to me before? And then I saw myself, sitting there making these choices, these reproductive choices, with complete sort of human privilege impunity, whilst taking away babies and exploiting females of other species for their products. And not just females, males too. Males are super exploited in the dairy industry. But that's a lot less talked about. It's even less talked about. Yeah. So that struck me, sort of like, I can't believe I never thought of this. It's not like, I'm not a teenager. That's just suddenly, and really that was it. Once I thought of that, once I understood that, I was done. It was immediate. It was overnight. I'm like, nope, I can't do this. Yeah. The end. Yeah. And that was it. I couldn't call myself a feminist and do that. I couldn't say, I want fairness and justice in the world, and then do that. The realization of that, and the realization of what I was doing just so that I could have cheese. No. So that was it.
So when you talk about I couldn't be a feminist, like the alignment to veganism and feminism. Tell me more about that.
I use it as an analogy. It's not, I don't want to make, and I want to be very careful about making direct comparisons between human related issues and non-human animal related issues. Yeah. But I want to use those concepts and those challenges that these issues pose to us as something that I can learn from and apply to other contexts. Yeah. So, if I don't if I look at feminism, I say, okay, well, human women shouldn't be exploited, or human people really shouldn't be exploited, and shouldn't be exploited for their reproductive products and for their bodies. Well, wait a second. If I want that for me, why can't I want that for everyone? So including non-humans.
Yeah.
Like why wouldn't I? So, but I think we do have to be careful, making it's the lessons we learn from thinking about these issues. How do we then apply them in other contexts? And I think that's the really important thing, because sometimes we then can water down both if we just mix them together. Although you say, well, maybe somebody or one of your listeners might say, well, what difference does it make? It does make a difference. It may be a subtle difference, and it may be a fine point, but I think it's worthwhile thinking about it in that way, because you don't want to alienate anyone either.
Yeah, that's a problem, isn't it? Because I was hardcore vegan and hardcore animal rights, and I used to go in really hard, and be quite aggressive about it. And I did used to alienate people, and I did used to piss people off, and it wasn't doing the cause any good. And then I started just not talking about it and just started living by example, and that really people started asking questions, and that was I can't say that I'm perfect all the time. It's I still falter, but it's the fact that people can ask questions and you can lead by example, and then you get the chance to actually talk about it, and you get the chance to say stuff, like the cows in dairy. A lot of people say to me, and it's I get it. I get why they haven't made the connection, but the cows are all right. They're fine. All they do is get milked. It's the poor beef cattle, that their poor bloody things are just eating grass, and next thing they get turned into hamburgers. And the cows are doing fine. And I'm like, and I don't want to be too graphic on the podcast in case someone's going to turn someone's, heart inside out. But it's really bloody, dairy's really bloody cruel, and
yeah.
The cows, as you said, they cannot produce milk without being pregnant, and they're not they're being raped and impregnated by machines and God, all sorts of bloody awful things. And if it was happening to a human, we would be up in arms about it. And I'll just say it, the boy cows, the little boys, a lot of them get thrown live into a bloody mincer. So if I'm just going to say that, I hate to even think about it, but people don't know that happens. I'm not saying all of them, but the little boys are treated like utter shit, and it cruelly, like some are, I won't go, stomped on the head, bashed to death, God knows what, because they're not worth anything. And I think if we know that, how can we, once we know it, we've got to go, whoa, well, hang on a minute. I didn't know that. No, surely not. And even if you don't believe me, get on the internet and have a bit of a look and just go, shit, that really does happen. I can't freaking believe it. And you can say, and people have said to me, but they're just friggin' animals. Who gives a shit? They're and I'm like, they're sentient beings, and they have emotions and they feel. So they're like, oh bullshit, they're just bloody eating grass. They don't give a shit. But I've owned pet cows, and I have pet cows now, and rescue cows. I've got 4 rescue cows right now, and I know for a fact that they have emotions. I know for a fact that they think and work things out, and that they have friendships. In fact, a lot of people don't know that cows have a best friend. in the herd, so that when we're separating them, we're actually say it's like the Holocaust. And I know I'm getting quite graphic and quite pissed off, but it is actually like the Holocaust when we're just, culling and all that kind of stuff. So I don't want to get too deep into it, because otherwise people are going to say to me, fucking hell, I'm not going to listen to your podcasts anymore. But
Well, I think, getting pissed off is there's nothing wrong with that, and everybody has to do the activism in however way they feel like doing it. And sometimes just existing as a vegan, as I always say, is activism enough. If that's where you're at and that's what you want to do, and that's fine. I think a lot of people also feel, when they hear about the treatment, they say, well, can't we treat them better? And it's like, well, no, it doesn't. You can't. There is no other way. And it's not about treatment, because you could treat somebody as nicely as possible, but at the end of the day, you're extinguishing their life. And extinguishing someone's life is something that we as humans take extremely seriously, and across all traditions and cultures and political views and so forth. So you've got to think about that. There's a lot of gendered violence in animal agriculture in general. I mean, both for and against, I'm not sure what the word would be, males and females of the species. And it's really hardcore. And there will be people who just say, you know what, I don't care. But people say that about a variety of things. They say that about things that affect humans and people and us and so many of us. And that's a reality too. Sometimes there are people who just don't care, and that's how it is. I'm not going to say it's fine. It is what it is. But you just try to find those people who are going to care. And when we look at animals and when we look at people, we all have different ways of existing. And some of us like to be outgoing and are extroverted, and some of us are very introverted. Some of us have different ways of perceiving the world and the way our brains function. And that whole spectrum and the human existence exists for animals as well. So some of them are really smart, some of them really aren't, some of them are really cute, some of them aren't, some of them are rare, some of them aren't. And none of those things really matter. Those are like all outside things, just like they would be outside external things for each of us as people. But the fundamental thing is that we are alive and we are experiencing our life as ourselves. So just that experience itself, that's all we need to say, oh, wait a second, they want the same things we do, to just like live unbothered, unmolested, leave us alone, I'm good. And that's it. So when we like take a step back and look at things in that way, and simplify it, not because we're stripping away the complexity, because there are loads of complexities, but when we strip that away and we look at it even just from a person perspective, like all those things are all external stuff. It doesn't mean that this person doesn't have the right to live. And that apply that to animals as well. But as you said, some people don't care, and that's the way it is. It's not fun. But
I think some people don't get close enough to animals to actually. I think once you look into an animal's eye and into their eyes, you can't hurt them. It's you wouldn't murder your golden retriever. Well, some people would. That's the problem. But you wouldn't. And maybe you just haven't had an experience with a cow. Maybe you haven't been close to a goat. Maybe you haven't, that sort of stuff. But, something that you said in there that I think it was two things. when you talk about some people are introverts and extroverts, I've had so many species of animals, and I can tell you there are extroverts and introverts of every species of animal, and they've all got their own personalities, and they've even got different barks, different moos, different way they run when they get excited about food. Like it's really, really, if you spend enough time watching them, you can see, like your pussycat on the screen.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry.
That's right. Every single cat's got their own personality.
Oh, totally. So my cat, I have two cats, and they're brothers, and from the same litter. They are completely different from one another. Exactly as you said, they get excited about food in different ways. They like different things. One is definitely an extrovert. The other one is definitely an introvert.
Yeah.
They're completely different. And, and yet they're brothers.
Yeah. I had chickens. Oh, go on. Sorry.
Yeah. No, please tell me about chickens. I don't have chickens around me, but I'm fascinated by chickens.
I had chickens, and just the fox in the end, the foxes just started getting so bloody hungry, and they came in and got them. But I used to have many chickens, like when I say many, maybe 8 at a time, and they were so funny. Like they were just so funny. They were all rescued from the chicken farm, and they were just they freaking knew exactly what you were saying. One of them used to come inside and get up on my wall unit, and there was a photo of a cat, and it used to get up there and talk to the cat, and it just, the minute you'd open the door, it would run in and it would jump up on the wall unit and start talking to the cat, and having this great big conversation, flap into this cat photo. And another one used to get up on the buddy bench and pick at all the fruit and veggies and try and steal them, and actually used to try and would look at me and then run. And I used to have this little duck, and it would come for a walk around the paddock. I'd say, come on, dogs, come on, cats, come on, baby duck. And it would run around the paddock after me. I had 2 goats, 2 dogs, and a duck used to run around the paddock after me. And it used to, I would say, righto, time for bed, and it would run and hide under my bed, so I couldn't put it in its bed at night. And as soon as I said bed, it would go, and it would run under my bed and hide from me. and like people don't see these things. Do it's they're so anyway. I love this stuff. Now, the other thing I wanted to say to you, just before I forget, you were talking about activism. And I love this. Many years ago, I figured out that it's like a square, and there's 4 corners, and there's activism, education, advocacy, and agitator, like what?
Oh, yeah.
Like an agitator. Yeah. I can't think of the word. Now I can't think of the word I'm trying to use. But really,
agitating. Yeah.
Agitating.
Totally.
Like really, really upsetting. And I think there's a place for all those 4 things. Some people go, well, you know what? I'm just going to be quiet about it, but I'm going to educate. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to talk about it gently. Others are out on the picket lines, agitating. Like blah blah blah. Others are saying, well, you know what, I don't think it's right, so I'm going to advocate and blah, blah, blah. And I think it's knowing that all 4 are great. And to be a vegan activist, you don't have to be on the picket lines, and upsetting people. And the thing that changed me actually is I was in town with an animal rights group. I was in the city handing out brochures, just passively. I was doing it, just hoping someone might take it and read it, and blah, blah. But I was with this guy who was with the same group as us, and he handed something to someone, and they said, oh, no, thank you. And he followed them up the road, abusing the hell out of them. And it was right in that moment, I put my flyers down. I said, I'm not doing this anymore. Because it just made us all look like raving bloody lunatics. That was when I thought, I've got to find a better way. I've got to find a better way to do this. And it's such a shame, such a shame.
It's a tough one, but that works for that person for whatever reason. In some ways it's also a form of self-expression.
True.
Where you're getting your own frustrations and sorrow and I don't want to. I can't think of the word. Not desperation, but you're just the tragedy of it. The overwhelming numbers. It's a lot. It's a lot to contain in a body, in a brain. So it does also, I think, become a sort of self-expression, and I've come a long way in thinking about this, and I agree with you. It all fits somewhere on that square. I completely agree with you. Wherever you are, find the thing that you can do, whatever that is. Even if, as I said, like, even if you're just existing, because if you're the only vegan in the office, and you bring your food every day, or you're like, oh, hey, look at this, you're going to start conversations. People are going to say, oh, I know a vegan. Oh, yeah, I met, once I had some person come after me with a brochure and yell at me, but this person's different.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So,
but I would have done the same. I would have been like, okay, this is not for me. But I can also understand, if I put myself in the shoes, perhaps, of how this person was feeling. It's a lot.
It's a frustration.
And you got to get it out. Yeah. It's a frustration. That's it. That's the word. Is the frustration and the extent and the magnitude of it. So I get it. And and the thing we worry about, to make us, when we look at ourselves as vegans, because you said, makes us all look bad, it's because there's not enough of us, right? So people will meet, like, a couple vegans, are like, oh, I met a vegan once and I hated them. And it's like, oh, wow, you loved everyone else you have met in your entire existence. Like, amazing. You've liked everyone, which is great. It's great. Fantastic. I love that for you. That's not necessarily what's happened to me in my life, but hey, but because there's just not enough of us, people don't get a full spectrum necessarily of all of us. So and to me, that's why it's, like, important to make more of us. One of the many reasons, obviously, but the more of us are there, and the more of us feel that we can speak, and we can express our veganism in whatever way, I think that's great. The more the better, and then more and more people, and a variety of people to show, the human experience isn't just one thing. I agree.
Now you talk about veganism can protect us from novel viruses in the future. I don't know, say that, novel viruses in the future. Tell me about that.
So one of the interesting things that came out of COVID, and we everybody learned the word zoonosis, and everyone's like, oh, these diseases that jump from non-human animals, they mutate, and then they jump into human animals, and that happens in a variety of ways. And we call them novel now, but what I found interesting was, like, wait, hold on, peeps. We have had zoonotic diseases since 10,000 years ago, when we started our extreme proximity to animals. So instead of letting them be free, run around in the forests, we started farming them, and we started changing humanity into what we know it today. So animal agriculture more or less started about 10,000 years ago. And about 10,000 years ago, we started getting all sorts of new diseases. But from basic things, not just flu, like as in all flus, every flu. You think you have the flu, whatever. All of that originated from proximity to animals. It's a zoonosis. But also, like, the quote unquote childhood diseases that we have. And people are like, oh, and actually, interestingly, my editor, when he was looking at our draft, and there was a passage in there like including that I said something like including childhood diseases, because I talk about it at a later point in the book. And he said, yeah, but they're just childhood diseases, as if like no big deal, just kids get them and they're haha la la, no big. But I'm like, no, hold on a second. Childhood diseases like measles, for example, those come from animals. They're still with us today, and they're very serious. They're so serious. They're called childhood diseases because if you didn't survive them, you didn't leave childhood because you died.
Yeah.
And so we forget, so each one, we forget about all the other ones, and we have loads and loads of them. Tuberculosis, a variety of others. And so the more intensely we farm animals, the more intensely we destroy their habitats, which we're doing both of those things, the more we're going to encounter pathogens that are in the wild and in amongst animals outside of the farming world. And the more chances we have of them coming into our world, into our sphere, and doing some serious damage to us. And and then of course you've got the conditions that when you have intensive farming, you have all the animals that are very close to one another, and that makes things that much worse. And obviously pathogens spread through proximity, air, spittle, variety of ways, blood, obviously. So the chances of us creating newer and newer zoonotic diseases increases the more and more we farm intensely, destroy habitats. But I want to go back a little bit, because I don't want to focus too much on farming intensely, because this is what we're doing now. But I want to take us back to 10,000 years ago when all of this really started. They weren't farming intensively. They had the classic mom and pop farms. They were small farms. And even from the small farms, these diseases came out. How quickly they spread, that's the difference. So what we're doing now just intensifies everything. We have intensified the number of animals. We've intensified destruction of their natural spaces, and forests and so forth, environments. We've polluted environments at a much higher and higher rate, and much faster. So then diseases spread faster. We travel. And so it's the magnitude of things and the scale that has changed, but not so much the concept. So you've got the zoonotic diseases, and then you also have antibiotic resistance. Animals on farms are given a tremendous amount of antibiotics. The more, and you know this from existing in the world, the more you take antibiotics, the more likely you are to become immune to them, and they are not going to work on you as much. So then you have things that are coming up like MRSA, and certain strains of bacteria that are completely immune. They've changed, they've mutated, and they're like, oh yeah, we know that penicillin. Yeah, that's not going to have any effect on me. I've changed, and they can deal with that. So the more we put antibiotics in our system, again, at really high rates like we do, because they're just, again, the animals are getting sick on these farms. They're all together. Imagine if that many people are together in a small space. Again, we can take the lessons we've learned from our experiences as people and apply them. So you put that many people and that many animals, that many creatures, I don't care what creature, together in that small space, you're going to get a variety of things that can happen. So that's another reason we need to move away from, we need to stop farming animals. And because this has been with us for a long time and we've not looked at it. We only look at it when we have the big crisis, which, COVID was the most recent. But, we've had these crises all our existence as humans in an agricultural culture.
Well, we don't look at them either because it's convenient not to. We have to chat. It's more convenient to ignore it. And something you said there about, we're becoming antibiotic resistant the more antibiotics we take. And some people might listen and go, but I'm not taking any antibiotics. But the truth is, every time you're eating an animal, eating meat that's had antibiotics, that's going into your system. And I think that we often forget that sometimes we're buying a sick cow, sometimes we're buying a sick chicken. And they're not culled. Like, I think that there's a bit of a misconception that every chicken that comes through for you to buy is a healthy chicken. But they're not. They just get run through the ringer, and you're always going to get sick ones in there, and you're eating that sickness. You're eating rotting flesh, but you're also eating the sickness that is in that energy of that body. And I think that we forget that. I think that we forget what we're ingesting and how it changes our cellular system.
Yes, absolutely.
Huge.
It's huge, but also if through our actions we've allowed these changes in bacteria and so forth, that's going to affect us, because whether we eat the animals or not, if we get sick from that thing that is immune to the antibiotic, even if we've never eaten, even if we've been vegan from birth, we're potentially exposed to some really serious pathogens. So this isn't something that affects just some people. It can affect every single one of us. The thing is, we are absolutely all connected by all of this. None of us is spared. We are, and I think, it goes back to something we were saying earlier too. We have this illusion that it's just us, or this X and Y isn't going to affect me. No, it may affect you more or less, or again, differently, like magnitudes and different things. But you're not going to get away. You might get lucky and get away with it, but I mean, it's a potential that's out there. So, you can't say, oh, well, I only eat organic and therefore I'm fine. No, because organic animals also get medication and antibiotics and so forth, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And when we're talking also about animal farming and how it contaminates water, for example, and water sources, in the US, there have been many E. coli outbreaks that have come from vegetables, and particularly certain types of lettuces like romaine lettuce, because the romaine lettuce farms, the fields, are basically right down the road from the animal farms, and the runoff and everything else. Well, where do you think the water is? The water.
The
shitty
water.
Pretty much. and here we go. And so here you are, you're like, hey, I'm just going to have a salad. Well, guess what? Your salad may be contaminated. Through that, or through other ways in packaging and how they're packaged as well. But again, there is a water component, and you have these waterborne pathogens that come from the pollution from animal agriculture. So all these things don't just happen in a void. They affect everyone. And I think that's the really important, looking at things through a lens of it's not just happening over there. It's not just happening to them. It is happening to us. It is happening to where we all live. And in a way, I would love for that sentiment to become much more how we view the world and how we try to make change, and how we try to make our existence better.
Yeah.
For all of us.
Yeah.
Not some of us.
But even if we took veganism out of the picture, so let's say someone's listening and they say, well, I don't care. Okay, well, then if my lettuce is contaminated, I'm just going to eat the cow. Screw the veganism. I don't want to eat the lettuce because that's worse. But even if you took veganism out of the picture, what I think is critically important, exactly what you're talking about, is that just the mentality and the knowledge and the ethics, I guess, or just the I'm trying to think of the word, just the thought process that is wrapped up in, I can't actually think of the word, just that thought that we are all connected. So it's not just like all humanity is connected, all humanity and animals are connected, all humanity, animals, nature, the planet, the waterways, the space. Like if we can actually grasp, maybe that's the word I'm thinking of, the concept that everything is connected, and I'll go as far as to say we're all just energy. Some people get that, some people don't get that, but if you can at least accept that it's possible that we're all just energy and we're all connected, we're all part of each other, everything is connected, then you can start to go, fuck, if I'm not looking after that. So if you're just a self-serving prick, I don't care about anybody else in the world. I just care about me, and you can all get stuffed. Everything can get stuffed. I'm going to go out in the bush and I'm just going to shoot every goddamn walking thing that I find, and I'm going to piss in the river, and I'm going to do all that kind of stuff that I want to do because I don't really give a shit. You're actually shitting on yourself. Like, you're doing the dirty on yourself. But
well, exactly. I mean, we're not, and this is something that we talk about when we also talk about rewilding. We're not separate from the wild. We're not separate from nature. We are part of it. How we are is an expression of nature. And just because we may live in a city or we may live, it doesn't disconnect us from nature. We might feel we're disconnected, or we might believe we're disconnected, but there is no such thing. I mean, the air is the air. And it absolutely everything is connected and everything affects. And again, that drive to atomize us, to become more productive and buy more stuff and make more money and work more hours, that very much is a one of those things that kind of makes you think you're separate, but we're not at all.
No. And you know what? Even just the whole climate change issue, I get snooty as hell about this. That's just a perfect example that we think many humans think they're separate, and think that, oh, that's okay. I've got plenty of money and that's okay. It'll go away. This happens every 10 years, blah, blah, blah. We're absolutely screwing ourselves over. Mother Nature is saying, you humans can go fuck off, because I'm just going to wipe you out. I'm going to keep wiping you out because you're just destroying me. You're destroying the planet. And that's what will happen. I think we need to actually understand that nature is so much stronger than us. There's a biologist, Jonas Salk. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. And he says, if humans were gone from the planet, it would take only 50 years, which is such a small amount of time in the long scheme, that nature would completely repair itself, completely be repaired. 50 years, that's all. That's how strong it is. But if you took nature out of our humanity, out of human existence, we'll take the bees away and we've got 4 years. So
Yeah, we're done.
we can't survive without nature. Nature can survive without us. Nature just thinks, piss off. Stop
Because it
trampling me.
Well, exactly. I mean, it doesn't, we don't control it, and
Yep.
we are part of it. So the effects of it, I mean, it's cause and effect. I mean, it's pretty linear in, well, in a very basic way. Obviously, it's not linear, but I mean, if we're gonna do it, it's fuck around and find out. That's
Well,
at the most basic. If we're consequences, actions, consequences, and then we live with those, and we do that on a daily basis, little to big things. And why would we think that that's different on a grander scale? And I mean, to some extent, I understand the not wanting to think about it, because
it's too big.
It's big. It's big, and also forces us to face our mortality, which modern societies, at least in the West, are completely unequipped to do. We just don't do it. So these are big things that we're talking about and that we are facing, that we just don't do anymore. And I think in past. In the past, and maybe in an ancient past, we dealt with that differently. We dealt with our mortality differently, and maybe if we had some of those skills and worldviews, although they are completely alien to us, maybe we would be able to deal with these big, major existential problems in a different way. I don't know, but I think we need to think about them.
I do too. And when you're talking about cause and effect, everything in the universe, everything is based on quantum physics, and it's cause and effect 100%. Like, you can't, that we are just quantum physics. And if go and look at, not you, but look at that, and that's every friggin' thing we do. Everything we do, ripple effects to everything. Now, talking about nature, because you and I, we've been down our little rant rave, but nature, I absolutely love nature. So you are rewilding the Birchfield Highlands in Scotland. Now, by the way, people are going to be listening to you, and you sound American. You live in London, and you're rebuilding the forest in Scotland. So, and you're born in Italy, so you're a bit of a bitzer, but it's bloody fantastic.
Patchwork for sure. So I definitely have an American accent. I lived in the US for a very long time. I studied there. I worked there. I've been living in the UK for a very long time, a couple of decades, in fact. And I grew up in Italy as well. I live half the year in London and half the year in the Highlands in Scotland. Yeah, so there we go.
That's beautiful. No, but that's beautiful, because it's just removing that insular part. It's kind of like, well, I care about all the bits of the world. I love it. Anyway, that's irrelevant, but I just love that. You just tell us about this Birchfield Highlands, because and what you're doing is, well, I don't know what you're doing, is replanting it or whatever. You tell us about it, but why there? Like, tell us the story about it.
I will tell you the story, because of course everything's kind of happenstance and luck. So I'll tell about the project first. So it's 100 acres in the Highlands, just south of Loch Ness, and it used to be a small commercial forestry with a variety of pine species, particularly spruce, which are fast growing, and they grow very straight. They're planted very close to one another. There are some patches of still what's called native forest, that of trees that would just naturally be there. Spruce pines are Sitka spruce are a variety of trees that grows in Scandinavian countries naturally. And so about 7 years ago or so, we went to hear a talk by a chap by the name of Alan Watson Featherston, who is the founder of a charity called Trees for Life. And he said, for the past 30 years at the time, I've been replanting the Caledonian forest just by planting trees as we go along and so forth. And we thought that was amazing. And my husband said, well, why don't we do something like that? I'm like, oh, okay. Why don't we? That sounds good. So we started looking around for a place where we could plant a bunch of trees. Eventually, we found Birchfield, and it ticked all the various boxes. It had a river. It wasn't too tightly packed of a forest. There were patches of original forest, or original Caledonian forest, and so forth. So we're like, okay, this is good. So at first we thought we were only going to plant trees, but then as we started learning about what was on the ground, we had various surveys, including working with Alan Watson Featherston, who did a survey on the native species and what would have been there, and we then started collaborating with a number of other organizations, ACOM, Lifescape Project, and University of Cumbria. We started learning all these different things and all various things that we could do. So planting trees became one part of what we were going to do. So then we started thinking about, oh, well, gosh, we found that there's a peat bog on site. And that peat bog, nobody knew that was there, and it had been planted on. And so we said, oh my goodness, so we should restore the peat bog. And in fact, that's something we've started to do just recently. The volunteers from ACOM were up there a few weeks ago, and they started to dam up certain section of ditches that were carrying the water away from the peat bog. So eventually, in however many years, you get that process going. But again, we have to find out all this stuff, because we could have said, oh, look, there's empty land there, let's just plant some trees. So what we wanted to do was slow things down and do it systematically. Of course, it was also very lucky that my husband was working at the time with some folks. He said, hey, we've got this piece of land, can we do something interesting? And one of the chaps he was working with, his name is Chris, and he was working for ACOM at the time, which is this big infrastructure company. And he said, I actually want to, I'm an expert in natural capital accounting, and I would really like to show natural capital in a different light, and to show how it can be helpful to look at nature in a different way, or for those people who need it quantified, to quantify it, not just as in taking down the trees and it'll give you $100, but taking down the trees, sure, you'll get $100, but what's on the other side of the column? What have you taken away in terms of carbon capture, in terms of the well-being of people, and so forth? So then we started to get that discipline through our project. And the thing about nature, quote unquote, big capital N, whatever you want to call it, is it's complicated. So once you start looking at one little thing like, oh, planting trees, then you're like, wait, hold on. There's all this other stuff that we got to think about. And then through fortuitous use of social media, I learned about this chap, David Satori, who has an NGO called Rewilding Mycology, and he's a mycology expert. So I said, hey, would you like to do a survey of what mushrooms are? Mushrooms, not fungus. Mycology is different. Do you want to do so then learning all about how important fungus are to growing trees, to growing plants in general, and so forth. So even that then got built into the mix. And of course, because nature is not just plants and animals, it's also people, including community in that. And for me, one of the things that's really important to me is opening nature or making nature accessible to people who think that it's not for them. So people who live in cities and don't get up there, don't have the opportunity to get up there, and who believe that being out in the wild is just for rich white people. And that to me is no, because it's nature is for everybody. If we're all part of it, we all need it. We all need to have access to it. So that's a part of our project as well.
Wow.
So we're trying to be as transparent as we can with the project on our website. It's, we have the reports that ACOM has put together over the last four years or so. And, we because we want it to be others to learn from us. And, we want to try different things and see what works, see what doesn't, see what can work on a small scale, see what can work on a bigger scale. We're just trying. So we want to try the best we can. And then that to us means a variety of things.
I love it. And I've looked at your Instagram page has got like little frogs and all sorts of great little fungus or mushies, great little toadstools, and it's actually really beautiful. You're actually documenting it really well on Instagram, all the beautiful little things that are part of that or forest. What do you call it? Forest, woodlands. What's
forest, the woodland, forest.
Yeah. It's absolutely beautiful. So because what we say is if we all plant forests. I had Prasidi Singh on. She's a 10-year-old girl in India, and she's planted I think 100 micro forests, and she's doing some.
I listened to that.
Oh, she's just amazing. So what do you think, because I hear you talking about it in a more complicated way, you can't just go planting trees. But if there were more people, and I'm thinking carefully doing it, like creating all these micro forests and doing it in a way that's more calculated than just slamming a bunch of trees into the ground, really thinking about how is it affecting, and we're not all going to have access to the experts that you've got access to, and it's probably better to have trees in than not have trees in, but still it's good if we can do it in a considered way and actually learn about the environment while we're doing. What do you think the long-term impact would be on the planet if more people took up doing this kind of thing?
I think that it's critical. We need biodiversity. We need more spaces for biodiversity. So planting trees is a great way. And the thing is, in many places, you will have access to people who know what kind of trees and plants need to grow in that area. They may even remember that those trees and plants were there before whatever else came, or before they were cut down and so forth. So absolutely, we need that. But I think every one of us can do some rewilding. Even if you live in the suburbs and you have access to a garden, if you have a garden, you can make that garden more wild, where you can create more biodiversity in your house, in your backyard. Just make it more messy. Let it be. Let it be. You don't need grass to be however many inches tall and centimeters, whatever, and you have everything in an orderly fashion. That's a really classist, a classist aspirational thing that we got from leftover kings and queens, that we've decided that we're all adopting. But, make your space messy. Give animals and insects and other plants and mushrooms and so forth, give them a chance to exist. If we all did that, because so many of us live in a space that's like a suburban space or that has a garden and so forth, many of us also don't. So, but if we have that access, let's do it. And it would be fantastic. It would be fantastic. And it would actually connect us more to nature. It would make us learn about our own surroundings a bit more, because we might have a neglected patch of forest somewhere nearby that we just don't know about. And if somebody's listening to this and say, wait a second, well, maybe we do have something like that around here. go and find out about it. And I think that would make a tremendous difference.
Yeah.
Because yes, we need large scale stuff, but we also need small scale stuff, because the small scale stuff pushes the big scale stuff to happen.
Yeah.
And I think it is really important to think about what kinds of trees and plants you're going to plant, if you can. But you don't have to get super scientific-y about it. You don't have to.
Yeah.
You can do what you can. And sometimes do what you can sometimes really be do nothing. Just let things be a bit wild.
Yeah.
Or pick 3/4 of your space that's going to be really wild, and then you cut out a patch that's going to be less wild for you. I mean, I don't know. In Australia, you might have different considerations for all the.
Oh, well, we got snake.
All the critters.
We've got snake considerations. So
yeah. Yeah, it's easy for me to say that in the UK, where we have adders, and they're like, I don't want to hang out with you.
No.
We have scary ones.
In the summer, we don't have wild grass growing, because you don't want to step on a snake as you're going out to the shed to get hay for the cows. But we've got lots of little gardens. When I say little, they're quite big gardens, and they kind of just grow wild. We just keep them tidy, like they're not manicured. We just make sure, pull the weeds and just stuff. But we've got one of them. And it's full of funnel web spiders. It's like the whole mound is an underground funnel web spider city. Probably that would freak the shit out of most people, but we're just like, well, we'll just leave them alone. They're fine. They're not actually doing anything. Just don't step on them.
If you can do that, exactly. Don't step in them, and then you do have to learn the environment that you're in. You're like, okay, well, that's the scary part that we're not going to go to. We're going to have a little path here, and we'll, use this space.
No,
that's for the spiders.
We walk in it all the time. We're always in it, and then we see them, and they pop out, and then we're like, you go back in your hole, little. They're not little; they're big, bloody spiders.
Oh God.
But you know what? It is what it is. But we don't want snakes, and the only reason we don't want snakes, you can't kill them. There's a bloody huge fine over here anyway for killing snakes. But we need snakes. We need snakes to clean up the mice and the whole ecosystem. But
absolutely,
we just don't want a snake biting a dog. So we definitely keep the yard in the But I absolutely love this conversation, and I just love, I love all of it. I love the kindness to animals. I love the fact that we're talking about everything's connected, that we've got to take care of each other. We've got to take care of the planet. We've got to, I think that humans have become too human, just too dominant, and just trying to control everything. And I think we just need to learn our place a little bit better and say, we are just one part of the whole existence. We're not the big part. We're not the main part. We're not the bloody, the big show at halftime. We are. Oh, you don't know what I'm talking about. We just had our
I do the halftime, like the NFL football. That thing. Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. But it's we've got to pull back and go. We need to coexist. We need to coexist, and we need to do it in a peaceful and kind way, and and be considerate to other people and other living beings, and just be considerate. Even considerate in nature. Don't leave only your footprints. Take only pictures. That's it. End of story. And don't screw it up. But
absolutely. I mean, it would be, to think a little bit more collectively wouldn't be a bad thing.
Yep, I agree. Well, I absolutely love this. Now, where can people find you? Where's the best place? I mean, I'm going to put all your links in the show notes anyway, so that people can go look at all your Instagram and everything else. But if they just want to find you quickly and find all the offshoots, where are we going?
Actually, my website called Emmy's Good Eating. So EMIS Good Eating .com. That has everything, and that's also my social media. So on Instagram, that's my the Instagram that I'm most active in. So you can definitely find me there. Like any events that I'm doing, all of that stuff is on Emmy's Good Eating. I will then, I then put it also on thinklikeavegan.com and so forth. But definitely that is like the central point that has also the most stuff, and I'm also most active. Because then when you have too many sites, you tend to gravitate to one and be more active than the others.
I do the
but
same.
That's a good place. Yeah, I know. There's so many. There's so much.
It's really hard, isn't it? Because they've got to sort of stay separate, but then you're kind of like, oh, should I post it on there? Now I should put it on there, and now I better put it on there. I know. I do exactly the same. But
I know, and then I mean, you try to have different things, but you only have so many hours in the day, frankly.
100%. And we're not going. We want to be out there making forests. We don't really want to be making social media too much, but we do want to be getting people on board. But I've absolutely loved this conversation with you. Oh, and can people get Think Like a Vegan book through your website? Or
they can get it at their favorite bookshop. Just go into your bookshop and order it, and
there it is.
It'll arrive. And you can get it on Audible as well. And you can get it as an ebook also. And what else?
On all the online platforms.
All the online platforms. Yeah, it's available anywhere. And this has been delightful. I have had such a fantastic time. Thank you so much.
Me too. It's always nitty gritty conversation, but I love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. We'll stay in touch, and we'll catch up with you soon. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Okay. See ya.